Hello and welcome back to All for Women's Football Podcast. We're here today with a very special guest from Nottingham Forest. It's head of women's and girls football, Amber Wildgust. I'm not sure why I couldn't pronounce that, but it's lovely to have you with us today. I guess firstly, to kick us off, would you just be able to tell us a little bit about your role as head of women's and girls football, got it right that time, at Nottingham Forest?
So basically my role is to oversee everything from our under nines all the way up to our senior first team. That's pretty much everything on and off the pitch. So helping Carly with recruiting players, helping fill the stadium, helping fill the city ground, having an influence on our front of shirt, having an influence on the style of play. So yeah, pretty much everything. It's probably the easiest way for me to describe it.
Yeah, absolutely, no, awesome. And you've previously had roles of like the likes of Aston Villa, Watford, London City Lionesses.
Mhm.
I guess what have you learned from those experience, and what do you hope to kind of bring to Forest as a result of that?
Yeah, I think that my experience of doing a similar role at Aston Villa, which I was there for quite a long time, and then Watford and London City, like every club is the same, but each club has their own like unique differences. I think I learned a lot when I was at Aston Villa, probably because that was my biggest growth period, because it was my first role and it was the role that I was there the longest at, and also we were in what was WSL2 at the time and went from being part-time to hybrid to then full-time in the Women's Super League and throwing a COVID year in there as well. There was a lot of learning which took place. Um, so I think probably being my time at Aston Villa is what I'll lean on most at Nottingham Forest, because we're going through that change now. Obviously, we've gone full-time this year. So a lot of my experiences, I'll lean on that. And I'm really fortunate that Carly was with me at Aston Villa when we went through that change, and she's with me now at Nottingham Forest. So there's a lot of learnings that we can bring to Forest from that, but also we've got some fabulous staff in the building as well. Um, yeah, so definitely there's loads of like little things, little experiences that you have at your times at different clubs, and that you can lean on and bring into the new environment that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting that you kind of say Aston Villa as well, given where they are and perhaps indicative of where Forest hope to be. So I guess that brings us on to the big news and the reason probably got you on the show. The club have obviously recently gone to full-time professional, as you referred to. I guess personally, how did you feel being able to announce that step?
I mean, I will never shy away from it. Like I've started my football career, if that's what you want to call it, playing for Nottingham Forest when I was 8 years old. So to be able to be the person that's at the front of that news and the person that's been able to influence the decision making process higher up within the club to get that signed off, it's a really proud moment for me. And I had to take a step back and actually reflect on that, because you know what it's like sometimes in that news, you can get caught up in it and just crack on and want to get the job done. But yeah, like it was a really proud moment for me and like for my family as well, because they were quite obviously heavily involved in Nottingham Forest when it was a grassroots setup. Um, and like I'm really excited that we've got, like I said, a fabulous group of staff and players and people in the club and the chairman and the owner. I just think it's a really exciting time for the club, and I'm just like can't wait to get people involved in that journey, like yourselves getting involved and being excited about the story, the fans, people around the club, people in Nottingham, our new netball club. So like I'm just excited to be like, right, everyone, come on, like we're full time, get involved in this. This is going to be really exciting, and we're going to get into the Super League.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm from North. My first women's football match was actually out the City ground, so super exciting stuff to see back there more
Yeah.
further. And we'll obviously come on to that. I guess from a club perspective, how important do you see this step for the club moving forwards?
Yeah, like it's critical, really. I think it's always good to be ahead of the game. So, like, we are in tier three, it's pretty much starting to turn into a bit of a semi professional league, like, no different to what the championship did a few years ago. I think we've always got to be ahead of the curve. And currently, like, in the league that we're in, we are. And there's no, like, when we go into the championship as well, and I'm saying when because I'm trying to manifest it, like, we'll try and be ahead of the curve then as well. And I think it's always important as an organisation and as a football club that you set your standards really high so you can grow into it, and you set the ceiling really high so you, like I said, like you can grow into that rather than constraining yourself. So it's really important for us to go full time. Also, as well, in terms of like transitioning, so we can get all of the teething problems out of the way now. And when we do go into the championship, we've already operated full time. We've already had a full time program, full time players, full time staff, so we know what to expect. So I think it's more that really knowing what we're walking into.
Yeah, bro. And I guess it kind of came with the same announcement in some ways, and part of that growth that we're talking about, and we've obviously alluded to it already, but all 11 home fixtures will now be played, league home fixtures, should I say, have been announced to be hosted at City Ground. What we've seen that like across the leagues with some clubs, but still in the WSL, not even all clubs are committing to that.
Mm.
Why have you made that step now?
I think it was always in our plans to get to a place where we played all our games at the City Ground. I'll be really upfront and honest about that. I think we wanted to be a sustainable change, and we started off with 2 this year. The plan was then to have 6 and to grow and emulate what they've done at Arsenal. That was the plan. I think we had great success last year at the Derby fixture, at the Newcastle fixture. We've got a fantastic fan base. The City Ground sells out every single week for the men's fixtures. And the facilities are just fantastic, and it's our home. So why not? When we get good attendances, we make money at those games, and that's really important to us, and important to us in terms of being a sustainable women's football club. Long Eaton's been fantastic. Like the relationships that we've built there have been superb, and Jim over there has been fantastic in putting games on, and we've had none called off, and we've got a really good atmosphere. But I think people want to be at the City Ground and they can't get there on a Saturday at 3 o'clock. So why not come to our games on a Sunday at 2? So it just made sense. And maybe we took that step early. People might say so, but why not? Like if that's what we want to do, why not do it now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess how do you see like what's your aim with attendances for that, and how does it like aid the growth of the club?
Yeah, so I think obviously our attendances have been quite good in terms of where we're at currently in tier 3. The average attendance around in the championship, and we have this slogan that we use amongst ourselves, the staff, is that we always want to be championship ready. So championship ready in the is like around 1,000 a game. And there's obviously a few clubs that are playing at their main stadium. So you've got Sheffield, you've got obviously Birmingham. There's going to be a few games that we're going to be our marquee game. So obviously Derby County is an obvious one because the men don't play against Derby County anymore. There's games where it's going to be really exciting because it'll be a double header weekend because the netball team are going to be playing on the Friday night or on the Saturday, and we'll be playing on the Sunday. So that'll be a real cool like celebration of women's sport in Nottingham, and we're excited to like marquee those events. Like won't shy away from it. Burnley's going to be a tough game. They're going to be league contenders as well. So again, like that's going to be a fantastic friendly and a different kind of rivalry, because that's a rivalry for us in women's football. But in terms of men's football, it's not. So bringing those rivalries to life. So yeah, to answer your question, like we want to make sure that we get a consistent fan base that come to the City Ground every single week. And then there's going to be a few games where we're going to open the fan zone. We're going to have some exciting things happening in and around the stadium because we want to celebrate women's sport and we want to celebrate Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. It's really interesting as well. We've spoken a lot about it on the channel in terms of like the organic rivalries that you mentioned. There's the Forest Derby rivalry, which is obviously kind of well established just in football. And then you've got the like Burnley Forest, which is actually something organic from the women's game. And we were kind of discussing that. So really interesting to hear you kind of mention that as something that's marquee. I guess, and talking of Derby, made a number of impressive signings, one being Amy Sims, and then of course you've got Kate Longhurst, etc. And looking at your pre-season fixtures, a lot of championship opposition or recently championship in Watford. I guess what are your aims for, you're talking about championship ready, it probably feels fairly obvious, but what are your aims for next season? And then I guess beyond that.
Yeah, so it's probably is starting to look quite obvious that we do want to win the league. We do want to be promoted. We want to be in the Super League. And in order to do that, we need to get into the championship next. That's the next organic step. Beyond that, it would then be a case of establishing ourselves in the championship, underpinning our women's first team with a really diverse, talented girls academy that we can be really proud of. And in years' time that there's players that are going to be within our first team that have come through, and from the likes of Arnold, Long Eaton, like we want homegrown talent. That's something that we're really clear about. Um, and I guess just putting Nottingham back on the map in terms of women's football. Like I got into women's football because all the FA Cup finals were hosted at the City Ground, and I watched Arsenal play there. Like that's why I got into football. Since then, we probably haven't done much in terms of football. So I'm really passionate about that. Like I want Nottingham to become a hub of women's football again, and it not just to be based down in London, because I think we've got a perfect opportunity. And also we've got Leicester on our doorstep as well, who are doing really well. Um, so yeah, to summarise, everyone says they want to be in the Super League, but we're really serious about it, and the owner's really ambitious. And our natural next step is to get out of tier three and into Nuco and kick on from there.
Yeah, brilliant. No, it's great to hear. I was exactly the same. I saw Arsenal versus Charlton Athletic back in 2007 at the City Ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we spoken. I guess you also spoke about how you were part of the academy. I was sadly on the receiving end, losing 8-0 to Nottingham Forest women at Baseford United. So that was not maybe quite as fun, but certainly a very impressive setup back there. And then I just wondered, like, obviously you mentioned a big part of the investment is into the grassroots football. What are your aims with that? If you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we have a really good initiative called Vision for Sport that the owners working in partnership with Eon, who are like really good like partners for us, both from like a grassroots perspective and a women's leadership. So we launched that, I can't remember now, maybe March, February, with like the Prime Minister at the time. And basically what our vision for sport is that we've got some fantastic sports in Nottingham. Obviously, we've got the ice hockey, we've got field hockey, we've got football, netball now, rugby, cricket. Like it really is a hub for sport. Ice skating as well. We can't forget Torval and Dean. So, but also as well, like not only do we have some fantastic like professional, semi-professional sports, we have a real good grassroots base. So what we want to do with our vision for sport is basically make sure that there is pathways from being amateur all the way up to being professional. But also like if you just want to have a kickabout or play netball recreationally, like you can do that. So linking into that, we want to make sure that there's lots of opportunity for girls to play football. There's also a vision there that they know that they then can become professional footballers and play at the City Ground, similar to netball as well. Like we want to provide opportunities for them to play netball and know that if they want to make a career out of it, they can, and they can play week in, week out at the Motorpoint Arena. So that's part of our like strategy from a like wider perspective. Like just in terms of football, we're really keen to like diversify the players within our pathway. At the moment, it isn't very diverse. Again, like we'll be really open about that. So we want to start setting up little hubs and talent days in hard to reach areas in Nottingham and make sure that no matter where you are, like just because you're outside of West Bridgeford, which is where we're based, doesn't mean that you can't play for Nottingham. Like we want everyone to be able to play. So that's where we're at from a grassroots perspective, and we're really excited to like galvanise the Nottingham in order to get people playing. And if they then want to kick on and play professionally, then absolutely, like there's a place for them to play. I think what crushes my heart a lot is that Mary Earps is from Nottingham and she's not playing for Nottingham Forest. So we want to be able to give those really talented individuals an opportunity to play for the place where they were born and the place that they're most proud of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You touched on some really important points there as well in terms of like diversifying the game, which you've obviously seen a big conversation around in the game. I'm kind of interested as well. You spoke a lot about the kind of netball team that Nottingham Forest have done. They'll obviously be playing in the netball first division next season.
Mm-hmm.
What does that link kind of bring to the football club, and how can you kind of build up
Yeah,
these connections?
I'm really excited by it. So obviously our owner owns Olympiacos as well. We want to be a modern day football club, quite a European modern day football club. And Olympiacos, we have a lot of different clubs as well. So when the opportunity came to have a netball team, it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. Like it was the first step in becoming that European modern club. I was quite heavily involved in the application process, and I had to learn netball quite quickly. But what's really exciting about it is the opportunity to share brands. So, for instance, we had a really good meeting the other day about sports bras, and that's part of a performance kit. It's not a case of are you small, medium, and large. It's a case of right, what's the right sports bra for you, and it's not just an item of clothing like socks or shorts or a t-shirt. Like it's performance, it's health based, and for us, in all the fact that we've got two women's professional teams means that we can go after sponsorship opportunities like that together. And that's really exciting because we probably didn't have the strength in numbers before when it was just us on our own. So there's loads of opportunities around that. And like we mentioned earlier, that the women's sport weekend, like when netball are playing and we're playing, like how exciting that you can go and watch both. So I'm really excited by the netball. I think there's going to be really cool opportunities. I've already had a call with Chelsea as well. I'm really excited to get her to meet Carly and they can share ideas from a coaching perspective. So there's definitely a lot of crossover. And there's a lot of challenges that we both probably face that we've probably felt quite lonely in it before. But equally, there's a lot of opportunities that we can go after together. So I know I keep saying it, but I'm buzzing for the netball. I think it will be great.
Yeah, no, sounds brilliant. And I guess touching on maybe a dark side of women's football, we've spoken about Marinakis, the owner, and it's absolutely fantastic to see his kind of investment and belief in the women's side. I guess from your perspective, there is obviously this kind of side to football where you've got your Readings that are potentially not in the best position, well, definitely not in the best position right now. How are you ensuring that your structures are sustainable and that it's kind of safeguarded in the future?
Yeah, I know it's really sad to see obviously clubs like Reading fold. They've been like pioneers in the game for a number of years. I think that's why we have been investing in the women's team for a number of years now, like even previous to me being in the role. And we've done it in a sustainable way. So, for example, like last year, we made the decision to transition to hybrid. Could we have gone full time there? Maybe, but it wasn't the right time and it wasn't right for the players. So, we're trying to make incremental steps. So, like this season, yes, we are full time, but we do still have some part time players. So, each year, we're just making slight incremental changes. Um, and again, things like working with the netball to bring in commercial partners, like Eon has been a game changer for us because it's been an influx of money that then means that we can spend that on what we need. And again, like making sure that we get attendances. Like we want attendances because the fans are great and they bring a good atmosphere. And when they sing Mulligan Tie, it makes the hairs on the back of Carly's neck stand up when she's about to, where kickoff's about to happen. But also that brings in money for us to then make sure that we're offsetting our costs. So we've got some really good staff over at the stadium that are looking at that and making sure that we're bringing in as much revenue as we can to make sure that we break even. And if we can make a profit, then brilliant. But right now, the focus is to break even.
No, brilliant. It's great to hear the kind of the planning that goes into behind all of this. And kind of coming to the end of all my questions, but I just wanted to cycle back to kind of your personal connections. You spoke about having played for Forest Academy at 8, and like, would you be able to like expand on that? And I guess just say how much this role and development means to you on a personal level.
I mean, that's a pretty big question to
Yeah.
answer. Um,
Sorry.
no, it's all
Let's
right.
start there.
Like I love my job. I always have, no matter what club that I've played at, sorry, whatever club that I've worked at, like it's a fantastic job. Like the amount of impact that you have on the women's game is incredible, and the impact that you have on the staff and the players, like that's what gets me out of bed every morning. But then to be able to do that for a club that you played at in a city that you've lived in, where your niece is growing up and you want her to be able to see that she can be a powerful, strong woman is really like I can't quite express like how motivating that is. And just like my old secondary school, like being able to go there and there's girls in that and do assemblies and there's girls in there that want to be like leaders in football or just leaders in life, and being able to see that is possible is like really inspiring. I think the biggest thing for me is like I was really fortunate when I was at Forest as a young girl that PJ was a female that was leading the program, and she really inspired me, and that's probably why I've led to where I am now, because I thought I want to do that. Like, that's really cool. Like, I want to be able to carry the baton for Nottingham Forest women, and however long I carry it for, like, I don't know, but I want to try and take it as far as I can, and I want to hopefully try and take us into the Super League and hopefully stay in there as long as possible. And then if I move on, I move on. But I think it's just really important to me to give those opportunities to people within Nottingham. And
Yeah.
it's probably really cheesy to say, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to hear, and I'm really looking forward to kind of going back to the City Ground to watch some women's football. And I know there's been a couple of derbies, but for it to be there more often and to have grown up around there and see that, I mean, one of my first matches was Forest versus Arsenal in the FA Cup, but it was at Carlton Town's
I
ground,
went to that
which
game,
is
yeah.
yeah. So
I
it
think
wasn't the same setting as the City Ground. It's kind of next to a sewage plant, I think, so slightly different vibes.
I think that's the thing for me. Like, when I sit, like, for example, like our first game at the City Ground, and we came out of the tunnel against Derby, like my first game at the City Ground, like in the role,
Mhm.
um, it was a bit of a surreal moment, because it was like the last time I was here, like, I never thought that this was going to be possible. And at the time, I never thought Forest would go into play at the City Ground, because the only way you could play at the City Ground was if you won the FA Cup, not won the FA Cup, but you got to the FA Cup final. And the fact that now that's happening every single week is ridiculous. And like you said, that Carlton Town game against Arsenal with Leanne Sanderson playing in the middle with the orange, it was the yellow away kit, wasn't it? And she had like bright yellow hair as well. And like, because she always had like really quirky hairstyles. Like, again, like, I remember watching that game thinking this is like packed out, but it's like a marquee, like almost charity match, because it's Arsenal and it's Forest, and the gulf is massive. So I think when we get to a point, whether I'm at Forest or not, where Forest are playing against Arsenal women week in, week out at the City Ground, that would just be amazing, because you'll have seen where we've been and where we've come to. Like, that growth is just going to be incredible, and why not? Like, we deserve it. So I think that's really what stimulates me. So it's funny that you mentioned that Carlton Town game, because I remember it really well.
Yeah, no, me too. I think I jumped on the pitch afterwards to get one of their like discarded water bottles and had like this, kept the water in it for ages, which is probably mean, but it was
But
an
this is
Arsenal
the thing,
player's water
like,
bottle.
but you're doing that for the Arsenal players, not the
Yeah.
Forest players. So like, we want to get to a point where people are like, oh my God, there's Lindsay Harkin. Oh my God, there's Kelly Smith. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't wait to hopefully see that happen very in the near future. Thank you very much for talking to me today. I really, really appreciate it. Is there anything you wanted to add, or do you think we've covered it all?
No, I think we've covered it all. Without, like, I'm really excited. If anyone can come down to the City Ground, like, please do. It's a fantastic stadium. Obviously, I'm always going to be biased, but Mulligan Tide is a fantastic experience to witness that, and the women's fans are really loud singing that just as much as the men's. So yeah, just like, support us from the sidelines, I guess. Keep up to date on social media, and yeah, hopefully we can achieve what we've set out to do this season. But I thank you for the interview this morning. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here.